with the hope that the money you get by taking the road out
and it
offsets the
probably
cost to
would.
fix it.
Sure.
Okay, so capital expenditures like sidewalks, some streets, and/or buildings?
Infrastructure, yes. We, and Christian can attest to this, had been going to council for roofs. Can you imagine I had a roof that the membrane was held down with tires? Absolutely outrageous. Roofs of schools where we had 18
Was this a public building?
leaks. Yes.
That had a roof that was held down by tires?
But yes,
Wow.
thank God it happened to be a teen center that I could close down, unfortunately. The problem with this particular building, and it's an old building, used to be the old police station. In fact, to turn it into a teen center, I remember ripping off tile years and years ago. You probably down there
I was down
helping
there
out
doing
too.
the same thing.
The windows are in really bad shape. We have windows, we're gonna do them internally. But you don't wanna be putting windows in with a bad roof, you're gonna wreck those windows. So what made me close the center down was the dangerous windows. I couldn't do the windows, so we boarded it up. I said, unless you give me, so it was having a hard time getting money through to council. I said, look, you're forcing me to close this teen center. So anyway, now we have it, we're fixing the roofs, which will allow us to put the windows in. And we'll do that all internally, so it'll be much more
Okay.
reasonable. That type of thing. We had a school, West Augusta School, had 18 leaks. And we were trying to get it done before school started. Now, we were able to relocate the children into a different part of the school. But that roof had to get done. Abigail Adams, we have we haven't put any money, real money, into our buildings, and that's a shame.
It's interesting, this weekend, well, Duxbury passed it, Marshfield went to round 2 of passing school and track. Big ticket,
All right,
big
yeah.
ticket, 62
Hingham
million and
102 million.
102.
Oh
yeah,
my
that's a
gosh.
big one.
Marshfield's huge.
Yeah,
Marshfield
huge.
passed 102?
No, they
Yeah.
got a vote, it's on 2 level, they did town meeting approval.
Yeah,
Then they voted to let it go to a general,
right.
which is,
Well, didn't they just
That's
lose
Saturday.
accreditation? I think they just
Marshfield.
lost.
Yeah,
They
didn't
were just
lose
threatened
it.
with it.
Oh,
They've
that
been
might
on
be-
probation for
that might
about
be.
6 years.
yeah, so it had to get done.
Sure.
That's a lot of money.
It is, unless you get
And-
into
and
MSBA. We were very lucky. We were first on the list when it was SBA. Now it's MSBA, when it was under the old regime. We were first on the list and we were able to do the high school.
Did you do 80, 90, what was it, 80%, 90%?
We actually did,
60,
You guys only did
64?
percent?
I think so.
64, 60.
Because that's what the state
I
is
was
picking
chairman
up
of the
now.
building
Yeah.
committee, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember, I think it was 64 or 65%.
and although
Quincy
they put
really
a
got
new
a heck of a
building, they
deal.
hooked on to
Oh, yeah,
another
they
building
got
and
the
renovated
minority
it.
end of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Milton.
Yeah, really amazing
They got
percentages.
90%.
90, yeah.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
Well, okay, so,
Yeah.
we're talking about consolidated maintenance, we're talking about capital expenditures. What else would you like to do in the next 4?
I would like to enhance our revenue sources. Yes, we're gonna have mitigation money from the base, but that's not gonna last forever. I believe Weymouth, Braintree, and Quincy are primed, and I think we may have talked about it when I was running initially. They're primed for tourism. We're primed for interesting historic value that would interest, Europeans love to come to Boston for its historic value. Well, why stop there? Why not get on a boat, go to Quincy, and then pick up a tram or a bus or whatever, and do Braintree, Quincy, and Weymouth? It's natural. And of course, to do that, now Quincy's way ahead of the game. You've got some really nice looking historic sites here. Braintree's on the climb, and Weymouth needs to do a lot. But now that you have Emory, we're doing a marketing study, and we just chose a marketing group. I picked this group because they were the only one of 3 who had a vision of not just looking at the Emory estate itself, but the area it's in. It's right by Abigail Adams' house, by the Abigail Adams Park. Then there's Emory, then there's the Legion Field area, which could be beautiful. And then coming into that town hall, central, where town hall is. So, that I think we can do something with.
Could Emory turn into a source of revenue?
Absolutely, absolutely.
What
It's
has to
my goal.
happen there to?
I
really turn
believe
that?
we can have, there's nowhere in Weymouth where you can have a very nice outdoor event, or even indoor event. I mean, you've got the Elks, you've got the very small, there's no real hotel. So there's no way to go. This would be our charming, come up, have a wedding, maybe a graduation party, things of that nature. I think we could do a lot there, because it's just beautiful. Have you been up?
No, but I've seen the
Seen
photos.
pictures?
It
Just lovely.
It really
Just lovely.
does.
Mayor, can I ask
Yes.
you, any thought of working with or asking for some of the information that the Streetworks people did in terms of tourism development,
Absolutely.
because they were extensive in their market research, and one of the reasons they chose to invest in Quincy was because if you go in, I don't know if you've been upstairs, you should go and ask them for a presentation.
I would love it.
In that old granite bank building,
Yes.
they're up on the top floors. But if you look at, they have a little sort of historic walkthrough of how they decided to come to Quincy, and they show a map with the targeted catchment areas for people they plan to draw and why, and it's totally linked to the Boston Tourism Freedom Trail stop on the way to Plymouth Plantation, but they have done enormous and extensive and top-of-the-line market
Great.
surveys. My suggestion before you spend any money is to contact Richard Heaps or the folks over there and
Terrific idea.
talk to them about, okay, will you share with us? Can we work with you?
Sure.
We could drive traffic back and forth, or would at least you let us see some of the data that you assembled?
Because I think if they could think about the tri-area,
Mhm.
tri-town area, tri-city area, if you will. What I did before, we had an intern come in, and she had done a lot of a sort of feasibility study, if it worked. She's got some great statistics for Weymouth in the surrounding areas. In addition, I would go to all those Massachusetts Office of Tourism. I could suck around those meetings like crazy, just getting some information. And that's where we found out about all of the Europeans and how they love to come. And somebody had stated there was a gay and lesbian group there. And they said, you have to have a golf course because lesbians love to golf.
Oh, really?
I never heard that.
Who knew that?
Who knew it? Who knew it? And Braintree said, well, we have a golf course. We'd like to attract
That's
lesbians.
a good one for the newspaper. Did you know?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's all I
exactly.
need.
Yeah. So, that we found that a little bit interesting, but there certainly is an interest, and I think it's close enough to Boston, to kind of love that Boston historic charm, and I think we can bring that to the South Shore. It's a natural. We can do it by water, we can do it by tram, we can do it by, we can do it by anything, helicopter even. Look what they do in New York City, even by helicopter. So I mean, I think it's endless, the possibilities.
Can I ask, we did some extensive reporting, it might be there on the wall, about what economic development might ensue from the train stopping in town. Has it happened around Weymouth Landing, around the commuter rail? What really, and how has the town worked with anybody, or do you have any plans to help that
A
situation?
very good interest, and that's very interesting also. I think the train, or taking the train, the commuter rail in Weymouth took off slowly. In the landing, relative to did it enhance businesses or pick up, I would say no. Only because the landing's in pretty tough shape right now, and we need to get businesses in there that will draw people who come in. Not only that, you don't have a whole lot of apartment living, so I believe in order to get the landing to where the draw from the T, you get off the T, you've worked in Boston, and then you have your drugstore, you have your bakery, you've got this, then you can do all that stuff and then go home and watch TV, because you live right there. And I think that's what we have to take a look at. So that whole smart growth, retail on the bottom, at least 2 to 3 floors of residency on top, I believe will, in my opinion, and from everything I've heard, will help the landing thrive. South Weymouth, I believe, could be a gold mine. When we have the train in South Weymouth, I think that's the old Colony line. In that actually came in before Greenbush. They're gonna bring the platform over into the base. So you're gonna have, that's gonna be a good place to live, because you've got the T right there, go right into Boston. And that will have a lot of retail on the floor. There'll probably be very little reason to leave that development. I have high hopes of that development, and it isn't even all gonna benefit me, but it's just such a natural.
You've got a big deadline coming up in that development in a couple of weeks, November 15th.
November 15th.
What's your expectation at this point?
I'll tell you that something's happening, and I'm not quite sure. I can't put my finger on it. I believe the Navy want to deal with it and hand it over on November 15th. I believe that.
Mhm.
I also believe South Shore Tri-Town wants to take it on November 15th. Where LNR is in all of this, I'm not quite sure. I should be careful because I'm not really sure. They're hesitant because of the environmental cleanup. Good, absolutely good concern and a valid concern. Then they're going to be selling properties. They're going to be selling homes. Then they want that cleanup to come in. Now, what the Navy has done, interestingly enough, I don't know if you've been told this, they have now expanded that area of environmental cleanup. So they've excluded a lot of the area where LNR had originally planned to build, and that's that downtown area. So the Navy comes in and says, oh yeah, you want us to clean up all this stuff? Well, now you can't go here. We're not going to transfer this because it's dirty. And we're not going to transfer this. Unfortunately, it lands right in the middle of where they want to develop. So I think it's what's happening is you do this, I'll do that, and if you do this, I'll do that, and no, we can't do this because we're the big bad Navy, and we need to make a whole lot of money because we're LNR, and poor South Shore Tri-Town sits in the middle. Probably not to be quoted on that. That's just Sue Kay's view of the world, and I'm not sure if I'm right at all.
It's funny because we've had both groups come in, and it is astonishing how LNR comes in and says if it wasn't for the Tri-Town, you know, the hurdles that they've created, we'd be flying along, and then you hear just the opposite. And it's such a
Exactly.
quagmire.
You know, it was an interesting concept originally. I didn't vote for it. I didn't vote for the project back then. It was going to be the Mills project, and yeah.
Shopping.
The only thing I liked about the Mills project was they were going to have a connector road going in. Now, I actually did support that first Mills portion. And then when it came back and they wanted to make it all residential, they went the jobs. They went a lot of the jobs and they took away that connector road. So now all of it was going to be 3 egresses coming out on Route 18. See ya, local roads. And I could just see it, and I didn't like the way the traffic studies held up. I didn't care for it. Dave's over here stewing because he was on the committee.
I was on the original planning committee. Put
So-
a lot of work into that place.
Oh my gosh,
Well,
years and
now
years of
15,
devoted
18
people.
years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was on the original advisory committee prior to the Navy leaving.
Yeah.
Then when the Navy left, I was on the original
It's
planning
older than I
committee.
am.
Sat on that, we were on that for 3 years. We thought we had it locked up
Yeah,
beautiful. The Navy was gonna give us the land, and we had
a no cost.
we had everything done. We had the road, we had secured at least $45 million for the connector road going over to Route 3 from Route 18. I mean, we were to go, and then
I was a
the rug pulled
counselor.
out from underneath us.
I was one of the unholy four. I was a counselor when it came before us and it was, we had a big, huge public meeting. I had been to Rocklands and Abington just to see what was going on. It really did have a lot of labor. Labor really helped push it.
Oh, yeah.
But they were promised a lot of jobs and stuff too.
Well,
Now
it
they're
was big
hurting, so
jobs.
it's really a big issue now. When it came to Weymouth, and I remember asking the question, these are individuals who were there from Lennar and are no longer with it was Lennar, now it's
Yeah.
LNR,
Mhm.
and these are David Hall and those people, you probably remember hearing those names. Anyway, I remember asking the question on the floor, tell me about no-cost EDC versus a cost. How does that affect this? And I remember David Hall getting up and saying, it doesn't affect it at all. It's a no cost, won't affect it ever. And lo and behold, $30 million later.
And one of the letters we had recently suggested that the Navy changed their mind about getting money for the base because they were no longer happy with the way it was going to develop.
That's
Well,
correct.
we're midstream, because it wasn't going to be a no cost, but I think in all fairness to them, I think they felt they were gonna create jobs, and you would have with Mills. May not have been high-paying jobs, but you would have had jobs. When it went residential, I believe that's when they said, hey, wait a
They
minute
did.
here. You're not creating jobs other than for the
So
construction.
there's no public policy benefit
Right.
from it. Yeah.
So this is different. Now, but what they did say along, after years and years, is that nobody would ever receive a no-cost EDC ever again. And lo and behold, Pelosi's area comes up with a no-cost EDC. So I think that's the rub right now, is they're all screaming, you said you weren't gonna have any no-cost EDCs, yet you're allowing it for Speaker Pelosi's. area.
And what's your expectation? You think it's gonna happen by the 15th?
I do, because I think the Navy's had it. I do. Whatever it is, it will end up to be, I believe they're gonna say, here it is, take it or leave it. And that's, they've never done it before, and they've had deadlines ad nauseum. But I think they really have had it.
When you were talking earlier about the landing, I was wondering if so much energy and time and resources has been taken up by the Southfield development
That's fair.
that the landing isn't getting the attention it deserves to flourish.
That's fair. And to my friend Mayor Sullivan, it sort of resurrected that interest. He really did. He was hell-bent on getting that landing done. And he was very instrumental in helping get the PWAY grant. I don't give him enough credit for that. As soon as I saw that there was somebody else really interested in getting that landing, we all got on board again and said, hey, this is vital, this is critical. So.
Can one development help the other? I mean, if Southfield flourishes, does that have an impact on how things?
I don't think it.
I know
I don't
this
think
is
it.
geographical.
Yeah, both two different gateways. I believe that Southfield will survive on its own. I think the landing can survive on its own, unless you link it. Now you could link it. If there's some sort of link in a transportation system. We don't have a bus that goes from one all the way down to the other. So we would almost have to. Now, when I did